let's go to the third out. So where we're at right now in this race, and to be honest with you, when I looked at this a few days ago, I was like surprised. I really, really was, because we had talked about a few weeks ago, like we kind of feel like the American League is set in stone, right? We were surprised that we were going to see like 3 AL Central teams in the playoffs, right? Because we would have never even guessed that. And we thought if there's any team with an outside chance to get in, it's probably the Red Sox, but not really anymore. Like that's not really how we see it now. The Red Sox right now, 4.5 games back of the wild card. The two teams ahead of them right now are the Tigers and the Seattle Mariners. They're 2.5 games back of the Twins, who hold that last wild card spot. Now, specifically, when you threw these topics my way, you specifically brought up the Detroit Tigers. Now, this is a young team. I think that a lot of people had expectations of them as, okay, this is going to be a growth year for them. We're going to see a lot more of, we're going to see if guys like Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green and Parker Meadows and Colt Keith and guys like that, if they can take the next step in development, and even with their pitching, right? Casey Mize, Reese Olson, guys like that, Matt Manning, are they going to take the next step with Tarek Skubal leading the way? What do you make of this whole scenario? Do you think that we could possibly live in a world where the Detroit Tigers maybe swoop in and steal a playoff spot?
So it's unlikely, partially because they're already down, I think, 2.5 games. And, the aforementioned Bobby Witt Jr. just hit a grand slam, and so they're down 5-1 tonight while the Twins have a late lead in Cleveland. So if the Twins win tonight and the Tigers lose tonight, those chances get even lower. Yeah. But there are two sort of things I want to touch on with this. The first of which is, number one, if this is close going into the last weekend, and the Twins do have a tough schedule, the Twins still have 4 in Cleveland this week. Like if they were to lose 3 out of 4 in Cleveland, this can get interesting pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And if it's interesting going into the final weekend of the season, you're going to have the Twins playing the Orioles while the Tigers play the White Sox.
Yeah.
So if they're within 3, you have a shot, because the Tigers, with shit on the line, I think sweep the White Sox.
Yeah.
Which is going to put some pressure on the Twins. Now, look, I don't think this is very likely to actually be an issue. Like, I realistically think the Twins are in a good position and should take this playoff spot. But I do think from a Twins perspective, like, it's pretty ugly that, A, you're not really in a position to win this division, and that, B, you're not really in a position to come in second in this division. You're in more of a spot where now it's like, are we going to make the playoffs? Like, the Twins being 9 games over 500 right now is not a great look. Like, just in terms of the roster that they came into this season with. Like, you and I talked about it early in the season, how, like, they were the clear best team in this division.
Oh, yeah. You and I both said that they were clear favorites for that division.
Yeah. And, like, the Twins are not the type of team that likes to go out and make big splashes at the deadline or in free agency. They like to really develop and then make a few signings around the outside. I think the Twins are going to need to, like, make some changes this offseason. And I'm not saying, like, fire Rocco Baldelli or make change, but I think they need to really reevaluate, like, is going into another season of relying on Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, and Byron Buxton the right thing to do? Because don't get me wrong, those 3 guys are pretty awesome players. And when they're all playing at once, the Twins are really good. Like, they're really good when all those 3 guys play, because they've gotten great seasons from, like, Willie Castro, right? Like, some of these other dudes have been awesome for them. But I think if you're the Twins, like, you have to be willing to make a little bit of a splash this next offseason.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get those 3 guys healthy for a full season. It's just not going to happen. So you got to stop relying on it. So that was part of why I sent you that topic, is because I thought it was a good segue into talking about, like, hey, Twins, let it be a wake-up call for you that you're sandwiched right there between the Royals and Tigers at the end of the year, because that's not where you were supposed to be. And I get it. The Royals have been good, but that's not where you were supposed to be.
So this is something, and I'm looking this up on the spot because like I actually don't know this. But I'm interested to see, because you bring up a good point of like you're sandwiched kind of in between the Tigers and the Royals when it comes to the division. Okay, so I just looked it up. It isn't that bad. I honestly thought it would be worse. I was looking at their payroll. Minnesota's right now 19th in payroll. Kansas City is 20th. Detroit is 26th in payroll right now. So they're first in that category, but it's not by a large margin. The Twins are right now right at about 130 million in total payroll. So they do not have a very expensive team, nor do they really ever do have one. But you're 100% right. We looked at this roster and we were just like, look, like it's very clearly like what we're seeing, and I can even pull it up from what we saw earlier on. Was, let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. So here's what we had, where we had the Twins, and obviously things have changed. Obviously from the beginning of the year, this was what we thought early on, but we looked at this and we were just like, okay, well, this like beats the Tigers, who like, don't get me wrong, like these are some nice young names, but very underdeveloped, right? Like we really haven't seen Riley Green turn into that much of a player yet. He looks like a real major leaguer now, but Torkelson was awful to start the year, right? Cole Keith was making his major league debut on opening day. Like Javi Baez was a disaster. Jack Flaherty is no longer on the Tigers. Like we're looking at this and we're like, okay, like this is a division that is more than winnable. And the Royals, we could even make a stronger case for that, because we looked at this roster and we're like this lineup that we're looking at right now, like this isn't going to last the entire year. Like we feel pretty confidently about Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, and Vinny Pasquantino being kind of cogs in this lineup, but everybody else could be moved or sent down or something throughout the course of the year. And like, obviously, I think we liked their rotation from a perspective of, okay, it looks like they're trying when they signed Lugo, when they signed Waka, and they've obviously gotten, way more than they bargained for in that department. But like the Twins are looking at this like, okay, we walked in with a legit ace and with a legit number 2 guy with Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan, right? Pablo Lopez has had really kind of a mediocre year. So they've really kind of lost a lot of that, like, that flavor going later in the year. And Cleveland has just like, you and I can both agree, Cleveland is like inexplicably good for some reason. Like there's no reason why they should be as good and as scrappy as they are. So again, and this is also, again, this kind of dials back to the whole thing of like Major League Baseball is like, it is wide the fuck open this year. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
this was definitely a year where the Twins could have taken the AL Central and like taken their regular year, right, where they win 90 games, 91 games, and have the second best record in the American League. But they didn't do that.
I think like on opening day, if you told me, Dalton, the Twins are going to finish with the best record in the AL this year, I'd be like, that's a take. Like that's a hot take, but that's not nuts.
Right.
Like in that division, that's not nuts. It's part of why I was so confident in the Twins going into the year. The thing with the Twins, though, that I find even more kind of funny and fascinating or whatever, like if you get into a playoff series against Minnesota, like they're still pretty scary. Like because
not if you're the Yankees, but if you're anybody else, yes, I agree.
But like when that lineup is healthy, it's good. And right now they're healthy. Like for the first time since I think like May, they have Lewis, Buxton, and Correa all healthy right now.
Yeah.
And like you look up and down that lineup now, and all of a sudden it's kind of deep. Like it's not great, but it's good. It's very solid.
Right.
And if those guys are hot and Pablo Lopez pitches well, which he's into the 7th inning tonight, allowing 2 runs in Cleveland, like he looks pretty okay at the moment, right?
Yep.
Like
right.
If he can look right for them and Bailey Ober can like avoid his random freakouts in the postseason, then like they've got there's some ability here. Like if you go into a postseason series and you're looking at Lopez, Bailey Ober, and Simeon Woods Richardson, like I'm not saying that that's going to scare you, but like, would you be shocked to see all three of those guys put up 3 good starts in a row?
No, not at all. It's a
So,
solid roster. I mean, you touched on it before. I mean, especially in that lineup, like especially when they're healthy. Like Carlos Correa's, he rocks. Like Carlos Correa is a really, really good player. Royce Lewis, when healthy, and he hasn't put his best foot forward this season, really. But again, a lot of this season he spent hurt.
He's barely played.
Royce Lewis is a really damn good player.
Oh yeah,
that dude rakes. So, like, you get all of these guys like ready to go. Like, yeah, that's not a lineup that you want to see. Like, there's definitely lineups that are worse going into the postseason or playing worse going into the postseason. Like Ryan Jeffers is solid. Willie Castro is solid. Like, you got guys in this lineup that can play, and there isn't like a true, like, you look at some lineups in the major leagues and they're like, once you get to the bottom of their order, it is just dead. The Twins don't have that. Like, they have guys that can kind of, that can hurt you on any given day.
I mean, here's what impresses me, right? When I look at their roster just in general, it's a long list of dudes who have an OPS plus of over 100. Like, obviously, Correa 149, Buxton 138, right? Like, those are the ones that stick out. Royce Lewis 124, Matt Wallner rakes. Like, big donkey, but this kid hits the hell out of the ball. OPS plus a 147 over about a half season's worth of at bats. Like, that's a dude you got to contend with. Trevor Larnach, 367 at bats, OPS plus of 115, 15 homers out of him. Like, these are dudes down near the bottom of their lineup. Like Jose Miranda, OPS plus 117, Carlos Santana, 113. You mentioned Ryan Jeffers, 109. Willie Castro's been an above average player. Like, if this lineup is hot going into a postseason series and Pablo Lopez goes out and shoves in game 1 of a wild card series, like, I mean, I'm like, they've got demons in October that they have to slay. But like, if we look away from those for a second and we just look at like some of the ability here, could be fun.
Yeah. Well, honestly, for the Yankees' sake, I hope the Twins make it through the first round of the playoffs. We get a nice matchup with the Twins, a nice easy trip to the ALCS. Because it doesn't matter how good the Twins are, right? The Yankees just simply own the Twins, and and it's a shame too, because I like the Twins. I wish we owned somebody else. I really do. I wish we owned like a team I didn't care about, like the Angels or something. I don't know, but I wish we owned somebody else. The Red Sox would be great.